It begins quietly. A Thursday night in Kangar, Perlis, the kind of stillness that feels almost deliberate. No wind, no voices, just the low hum of crickets outside a modest home on Jalan Padang Behor. Inside, Amri Che Mat is getting ready to leave. He tells his wife, Nur Hayati, that he's going out to meet a friend in Jitra, a small town across the state line in Kedah. It's late, around 11:30 p.m, but he doesn't seem worried. He's made night drives before. To her, this is just another evening. But to history, this is the last time anyone would ever see him alive. What happens over the next few minutes would not just alter a family, it would expose the hidden machinery of fear in Malaysia itself. To understand what was taken that night, you have to know who Amri was. Born and raised in Perlis, Amri wasn't famous, but he was known. He ran a small NGO called Perlis Hope, a community organization focused on helping the poor, orphans, and marginalized families. He organized food drives, paid school fees, talked openly about faith and unity. But in Malaysia, good intentions can quickly become dangerous, especially when religion enters the conversation. Amri believed in open dialogue between faiths. He discussed Islam in ways that some conservatives considered deviant. Local authorities accused him of promoting Saya teachings, a charge often used to silence voices seen as too independent. He wasn't a rebel, he was a reformer. But reformers often meet the same fate as rebels. And so the man who built Perlis Hope, a charity about light and progress, would ironically vanish into darkness. It's close to midnight now. Amri steps into his silver Toyota Fortuner, reversing out of the driveway. Nur Hayati remembers hearing the familiar sound of his engine, a moment she's replayed in her mind thousands of times. Then, nothing. He drives down Jalan Padang Behor, a short, lonely road barely half a kilometre from home. That's when it happens. Several vehicles, at least 3, maybe more, appear out of the shadows. Their headlights blaze through the dark like interrogation lamps. One car pulls ahead of Amri's, and another blocks him from behind. A third cuts across his flank. Witnesses later said there were between 15 and 20 men, some armed, some wearing black tactical clothing. The entire maneuver takes less than a minute. And then, silence. No gunfire, no screams, just the sound of tires against gravel, and a man erased from existence. For a while, no one knows. Nur Hayati goes to bed assuming he'll return before dawn. But when the sun rises, his side of the bed is still untouched. She calls his phone, no answer. She messages friends, no one's heard from him. By 7 a.m, panic has turned to dread. She drives the same road he took, scanning every side street, every shoulder, calling his name through the window. Nothing. Then, around 8 a.m, someone calls her. A car, matching her husband's Toyota Fortuner, has been found abandoned at Bukit Kebang, near the sports school. She rushes there. What she finds is worse than any nightmare she could have imagined. The car is parked awkwardly near a construction site. The windows are smashed from the inside, shards of glass glittering in the dirt. The inside is eerily clean. No blood, no struggle. Only the faint smell of something metallic. The key is gone. Amri is gone. It looks less like a crime scene and more like a message. As word spreads through Kangar, fear follows. Neighbours whisper about what they saw, or what they think they saw. A man from across the street claims he heard engines revving around midnight. Another describes black SUVs with tinted windows. Someone mentions a gold Toyota Vios, a car that would later become infamous in another disappearance. Police arrive, but slowly. Officers take photos, file a report, promise updates. But behind the scenes, something feels wrong, like an invisible wall has gone up. Witnesses say men in plain clothes visit homes asking questions and then warning them not to repeat what they said. Within days, silence takes over. An entire community watches the truth vanish just as quickly as the man himself. Days become weeks, weeks turn into months. No ransom calls, no sightings, no clues. For Nur Hayati, each morning begins the same way, with a glance at her phone, waiting for a message that never comes. Meanwhile, the tone of the authorities begins to change. Instead of searching for him, they start questioning who he was. Why was he promoting deviant beliefs? Why was he talking to Christians? Was Perlis Hope really just a charity? It's as if the system had already decided he deserved to disappear. If you're just joining this story, hit subscribe, because what you're hearing right now is only the beginning. By late 2017, whispers began to circulate about another man, a pastor, who vanished in an eerily similar way. Same kind of cars, same kind of timing, and the same kind of silence from the authorities. But before anyone makes the connection, Nur Hayati continues to search, driving the same route night after night, headlights cutting through empty fields, praying for a sign. Because somewhere out there, she still believes her husband is alive. Then one day, the phone rings again. It's not him. It's an officer telling her the case is now under review. No explanation. No progress. Just a new file number. But in Perlis, people remember. They remember the night when lights flared in the dark, and one of their own was taken. The next morning, Amri's car was found, but Amri himself had vanished, as if the earth had swallowed him whole, and what the police would say next would raise more questions than answers. A call comes through to Nur Hayati just after dawn. A car, her husband's Toyota Fortuner, has been found near Bukit Cabang Sports School. She drives there in disbelief, still hoping this is all a mistake. But as she pulls up to the scene, hope begins to die. The car is there, but Amri isn't. It's parked on uneven dirt, half sunken near a construction site, as if abandoned in a hurry. The first thing people notice is the windows, smashed from the inside, not broken in, broken out. Tiny shards of safety glass sparkle in the morning light, scattered like evidence of something unspeakable. Inside, it's strangely clean. No blood, no torn fabric, no fingerprints that shouldn't be there. Even the seats look wiped. It's a crime scene scrubbed of its own story. Whatever happened to Amri Che Mat didn't end here. It started here. When the police arrive, they do what police often do. They assess, they photograph, they file. But urgency? That's missing. Officers cordon off the area loosely, barely keeping curious onlookers away. There are no forensic vans, no evidence markers, no sign of investigators moving with purpose. Just men in uniform staring at a vehicle they already seem to have made up their minds about. Nur Hayati stands at a distance, clutching her scarf, whispering prayers under her breath. She expects questions, comfort, maybe an explanation. Instead, she's told to go home and wait. Hours turn into days. No word. By the time official statements come out, the narrative has already been rewritten, from abduction to missing person. Eyewitnesses tell a different story. One man, a food stall owner near Jalan Padang Behor, swears he saw 3 vehicles blocking a Fortuner around midnight. Headlights blinding, engines revving, men jumping out in black. Another says it wasn't 3, it was 5. And there weren't just a few men. There were at least 15, maybe 20. Some had weapons. One carried what looked like a radio. But when journalists try to talk to them again, the witnesses vanish. They stop picking up calls. Their stalls close early. Neighbors say they went back to the village. It's the same phrase used again and again when people start to disappear from the conversation. In Perlis, silence spreads faster than rumor, because sometimes silence is survival. Meanwhile, the police begin floating their own theories. Maybe Amri went missing voluntarily. Maybe it was personal debt. Maybe it was religious. Each suggestion chips away at the truth, burying it under speculation. The one possibility no one inside the system wants to say out loud, that someone wanted him gone and had the power to make it happen. And yet, around Kangar, people keep whispering about what they saw that night. The gold Toyota Vios, seen idling near the same road before Amri's car disappeared. A car that would later resurface in another shocking case. But that connection hasn't been made yet. Not publicly. For now, it's just fear, spreading one conversation at a time. Weeks pass. The media loses interest, news stories fill the headlines, and Amri becomes a name fading from print. But for his family, the nightmare doesn't fade. Nur Hayati visits the police station every week, sometimes twice. She's told the case is under review, that investigations are ongoing, but nothing moves. It's not incompetence, it's resistance, the kind that doesn't say no, it just never says yes. Each visit ends the same way, empty hands, heavier heart. If you're just discovering this story, subscribe, because what's about to unfold next proves that Amri's disappearance was never an isolated tragedy. It was the start of a pattern. By December, whispers of intimidation become impossible to ignore. A neighbor who spoke to the local press says he was followed home. Another reports strangers parked outside at night, taking photos. People who once shared theories about Amri now cross the street to avoid being seen with Nur Hayati. In a town that once admired Amri's kindness, fear now keeps doors closed. It's as if the same invisible hand that took him is still here, rearranging what people remember. 6 months later, the investigation has stalled completely. Files gather dust. Officers are transferred. Each new lead dies in the same place, inside official silence. But there's one thing the authorities can't control: the similarities. People start comparing notes between Amri's case and others whispered about across Malaysia. Similar methods, similar vehicles, similar vanishing points. And then, February 2017, just 3 months after Amri's abduction, another man disappears. This time it's a pastor named Raymond Coe. Abducted in broad daylight, multiple vehicles, the same gold Toyota Vios was seen again. We covered Pastor Raymond Coe's disappearance. You can subscribe and check our channel for the case. And suddenly, the whole country starts to ask, what if these cases are connected? What if both men were taken by the same hands, the kind that wear no uniform but answer to power? Because if that's true, then Amri's disappearance wasn't random, it was systematic. As months turn into years, Nur Hayati refuses to give up. She attends vigils, speaks to human rights groups and keeps her husband's name alive, even when it puts her under surveillance herself. Each time she's asked what she wants most, her answer never changes. I just want to know what happened to my husband. And somewhere deep in Malaysia's official archives, buried under layers of secrecy and politics, the answer already exists. Because when Pastor Raymond Coe disappeared, the pieces of the puzzle began to align, and the more investigators dug, the more one truth began to surface. This wasn't a coincidence, it was coordination. And with that, an official investigation was opened. It begins not in the streets of Perlis, but in a quiet, sterile hearing room in Kuala Lumpur. Rows of seats filled with journalists, activists, and families clutching photos of the missing. On the table before them, a nameplate that reads Suhakam, Malaysia's Human Rights Commission. For the first time in years, the silence surrounding Amri Che Mat's disappearance was about to be broken, officially. Everyone knew something was wrong with the investigation, but no one expected what would come out next. In 2018, Suhakam launched a public inquiry into 4 high-profile disappearances, 2 of them being Amri Che Mat and Pastor Raymond Coe. The government had long insisted both cases were unrelated, but the inquiry would soon show otherwise. Witness after witness stepped forward, a former police officer, a neighbor, a retired intelligence contact. Their stories aligned in one disturbing direction. Amri had been under surveillance long before he vanished. Someone had been watching him, not for weeks, for months. Records showed that vehicles, some with tinted windows and false plates, had been spotted near Amri's home multiple times before his disappearance. The same model vehicles later appeared in the abduction of Pastor Coe just 3 months later. A silver SUV, a convoy of dark sedans, the same method, the same silence. Investigators began connecting the dots. These weren't random kidnappings, they were operations. And the question that followed changed everything. Who had the power to pull them off? Evidence presented during the inquiry pointed toward the Special Branch, Malaysia's elite police intelligence division. A unit trained for covert operations, surveillance, and counter-terrorism. One whistleblower, a former police officer known only as Witness X, described how the Special Branch conducted black operations, missions carried out without official documentation, often targeting individuals seen as threats to Islam. Amri, through his NGO Perlis Hope, had been accused by state religious authorities of promoting Shia Islam, a forbidden sect under Malaysian law. There was no proof of this claim, but it was enough to mark him as a target. It wasn't just about religion, it was about control, and the quiet fear that comes when authority can erase you without a trace. Throughout the hearings, the same pattern emerged: coordinated abductions, rapid execution, and total silence afterward. The commission cross-referenced vehicle data from Amri's case with footage from Pastor Coe's kidnapping. They found a striking match: the same type of black pickup truck, same convoy structure, same time of night. The coincidences were no longer coincidences. The same cars, the same timing, the same men, the same country that said they didn't exist. As the inquiry deepened, an unsettling phrase appeared in the testimony: enforced disappearance. It's a term used in international law when someone is abducted by the state or with the state's consent and never seen again. By April 2019, the evidence was overwhelming. Suharkam released its findings. On the balance of probabilities, the enforced disappearances of Amri Che Mat and Pastor Raymond Coe were carried out by agents of the state, namely the Special Branch of the Royal Malaysian Police. The truth was out, and suddenly, Malaysia had to face a word it had long denied: complicity. The public reaction was explosive. Media outlets covered it nationwide. Human rights groups called it a stain on democracy. But within government circles, there was mostly silence. No officers suspended. No new arrests. Amri's wife, Nurhayati Modarifin, sat quietly during the announcement. For her, the statement wasn't closure. It was confirmation. She'd always believed it. Now she had proof, and yet, still no justice. If you're just discovering this story, hit subscribe, because what happens next exposes something far darker than one man's disappearance. Because the government's next move would bury the truth all over again. In June 2019, the Home Ministry announced the formation of a special task force to reinvestigate Suharkam's findings. On paper, it sounded like accountability, but behind closed doors, families of the disappeared felt something else: delay. Months turned into years. The task force finished its work in 2022, but when reporters asked for the report, they were told it was classified under the Official Secrets Act. Even Parliament couldn't access it. A government report exists, one that might explain what happened to Amri, but no one outside the system has ever read it. The secrecy reignited outrage. Nurhayati began a new campaign demanding transparency. She appeared in press conferences, filed petitions, and stood outside government buildings holding Amri's photo, the same smile, the same eyes, refusing to let him fade into memory. Her persistence turned Amri's case into something larger, a national symbol of how easily truth can be buried beneath bureaucracy. And through it all, one chilling fact remained. None of the suspected special branch officers were ever named. Everyone knew who they were talking about, but no one could say the names out loud. To this day, the government maintains that the case remains under review. No arrests, no updates, just silence, the same kind that swallowed Amri's Toyota Fortuner on that November night. But if Suharkam's findings taught Malaysia anything, it's this. When a disappearance is designed by the state, it's not just one man who goes missing, it's the truth itself. In June 2019, the government promised answers, but years later those answers are still locked away behind the Official Secrets Act. And for Amri's family, that silence is the loudest confession of all. The years passed, but the silence never softened. For Nurhayati Modarifin, Amri Che Mat's wife, time didn't heal anything. It just made the questions louder. In 2021, nearly 5 years after her husband vanished, she filed a formal request to the Malaysian government, release the task force report. The one promised after Suharkam's shocking findings. The one that could explain what really happened. The reply was short and devastating. The report was classified under the Official Secrets Act. National security, they said. National security, 2 words that can bury a truth forever. No one outside government walls was allowed to read it. Not the media, not Parliament, not even the families of the disappeared. But within the silence, rumours began to circulate that the report had confirmed police involvement, that it had named officers, and that its contents could shake the country's institutions. For Nurhayati, this wasn't just about proof. It was about dignity, the right to know what happened to her husband, and why the people sworn to protect citizens could simply erase one. Every time she spoke his name in public, it was an act of defiance. She held press conferences. She stood before reporters holding Amri's photograph, his eyes frozen in mid-laughter. Her message was simple. If the state has nothing to hide, then why hide the truth? Still, nothing changed. The task force remained silent. The police, defensive, the ministers, vague, and the longer the silence stretched, the clearer it became. This wasn't neglect, this was preservation. By 2024, Parliament finally admitted the truth. The investigations into Amri's disappearance remained open but unresolved. No one charged, no names revealed, no answers given. But the silence was cracking, and when it did, it came from the one place the state couldn't ignore: the courtroom. In January 2025, the Kuala Lumpur High Court issued a ruling that would rewrite the narrative. The court declared that both the Royal Malaysian Police and the Government of Malaysia had failed their constitutional duty to properly investigate Amri Che Mat's disappearance. Justice Datuk Amarjit Singh said it plainly. The authorities failed to take all reasonable steps to determine the fate and whereabouts of Amri Che Mat. For the first time in nearly a decade, someone in power said what everyone else already knew, that Amri had been failed by the system meant to protect him. The ruling didn't find who abducted him, it didn't reveal where he was taken, but it did something symbolic. It shattered the government's shield of denial. The High Court ordered the case to be reopened and awarded RM3 million in damages to Amri's family. For Nur Hayati, it wasn't a victory, it was validation. After 8 years of petitions, vigils and public humiliation, the courts had finally acknowledged that the system was broken and that her husband's life mattered. She once said in an interview, "They took my husband, but they didn't take my faith." Faith, not just in religion, but in truth. In the belief that even when power hides behind secrecy, justice has a way of resurfacing. At vigils held in Perlis, candles flickered in the night wind. Supporters whispered prayers, their faces lit by phone flashlights. Above them, banners read, "Where is Amri Che Mat?" His story had grown beyond one man's disappearance. It had become a mirror, reflecting a Malaysia wrestling with its own conscience. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe. Because the truth about Amri Che Mat isn't just about the past. It's about what silence still protects today. Because when a disappearance is enforced, it's not only a person that vanishes, it's accountability. In the years since, activists have warned that Amri's case set a dangerous precedent, that a state can hide behind the word security to conceal human rights violations. And yet, amid the fear, more voices have risen. Organizations like Suaram and Amnesty International continue to demand that the report be declassified. They call it the country's dark file, the one story Malaysia refuses to finish. And if you think this story ends here, it doesn't. The last public statement from the Home Ministry came quietly, a simple line in a press release: "The case remains open." But open means nothing when no one is looking. For Nur Hayati, the fight continues, not for vengeance but remembrance. She once said, "If I stay silent, then they win." So she speaks. Every interview, every vigil, every petition, an act of resistance against forgetting. Her husband's name, once whispered in fear, is now spoken in solidarity. In Malaysia today, to say Amri Che Mat's name is to remind the powerful that silence doesn't erase truth, it only delays it. As the documentary closes, imagine this. A long stretch of road in Perlis. Night air is thick and still. A single car passes by, headlights washing over empty asphalt. For a moment, you might believe you see a shadow at the edge of the light. Then it's gone. The same road Amri drove down on that November night, the same darkness that swallowed him. But even in that darkness, something remains. His wife's courage, his friend's memory, and the questions that refuse to die. Because in Malaysia, enforced disappearances aren't just about those who vanished. They're about those still searching. And every time someone asks, "Where is Amri Che Mat?" that silence loses a little more of its power. Stories like this don't end, they echo. If you believe these stories deserve to be told, subscribe and share. Because truth only survives when someone keeps looking.